Welcome to Pop-O-Holics, the show about hot, tasty takes, hotter than hot, tasty flapjacks. Yo, mixing it up.
Wow, curveball.
My name is Christian Katie. I'm your host. Welcome, YouTube watchers as well as podcast listeners, to the weekly upload for July 19th, 2021. I'm your host, Christian, and I'm joined, as always, by my two best friends,
Chris Conkling
And Brian Dupree.
Boys, good to have you here. We're back on the webs, back on the weekly upload. A little bit of hiatus from the YouTubes, and we had our wonderful Black Widow discussion as well as our weekly upload last week, available exclusively to podcast listeners. If you want to know where to subscribe to hear all of our content, there's a nice little link below that you should check out. Also, smash that subscribe button on YouTube to see our news corner and maybe more down the road. But what is this? What is this wacky thing? Well, for our YouTube watchers, we're going to be covering the latest news. We've got news on Disney Plus content, as well as a new Star Trek movie, some video game news, and then we got some upcoming movies and TV shows that Brian's going to talk about. For our podcast listeners exclusively, we have our What We've Been Consuming. We'll be talking about Wellington Paranormal on HBO Max, as well as The Shards by Bret Easton Ellis, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood novelization. I'll let listeners guess who is the reader in this group. And then I'm going to be talking about The Hunt, which is available on HBO Max. And then we'll have some community feedback. But let's delay no further. Let's start the way we do on the show, which is with Brian's Wacky News Corner.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Wacky News Corner. So, this Wednesday, we are covering the recently ended Loki on Disney Plus. So, this is not a spoiler to say that in the post-credit scene, or mid-credit scene, technically, it was revealed that Loki season 2 has been announced and is coming at some point. So without getting into spoilers about the show, where Loki ends, how do you guys feel about this? Do you think this is a good idea with where Loki ended? Do you think, is there more material to dive into here? Quickly, personally, I am more than enthusiastic to see where this goes. And I think this show, if anything, has opened the scale of where things could go in a way that is nearly limitless. So I'm super excited to see where this show goes, and obviously its implications for the movies going forward. Chris, how are you feeling about this news?
I'm very excited for this news, Brian. This is the first MCU Disney Plus show to get a second season. All these other shows have been quote unquote limited series.
Right.
So we kind of knew that they weren't going to get second seasons, but Disney never called Loki this. So yeah, great news. I think it's necessary based on where the show ends, and we'll get into spoilers and our thoughts on Loki on Wednesday's episode. But yeah, this is cool. I'm very excited for more Tom Hiddleston as Loki.
Yes, we're going to be covering Loki in our main topic episode next week, so we won't say too much. But I have to say, I was just full out going to spoil my opinion. It's my favorite Disney Plus show. One of my favorite things in Marvel. Okay. So, of course, out of all the things that could have gotten renewed, I'm down for this one to do it. All the main cast and some of the characters introduced later, it's all very, very exciting. So I'm 100% for this. I think this, out of all the shows, if you're like, pick one to renew, this would be the one. So it's very exciting stuff.
Yeah, so that's Loki season 2. Tune in on Wednesday for our full spoiler-filled discussion on the ending of that season.
Spicy.
Staying in MCU adjacent news, the director of WandaVision, which we've also covered previously, check that out. The director Matt Shakman has been tapped by Paramount and Bad Robot to direct the latest Star Trek movie. So there's been a bunch of rumors about multiple Star Trek movies in production. This one seems to be the closest to actually getting made. There's very little details about plot here, even casting. So it's unclear if this is tied into the trilogy, the reboot trilogy that happened recently. But this is written, the screenplay is written, and it's by Lindsay Beer and Geneva Robertson, who worked on Captain Marvel, and J.J. Abrams is set to produce. So I think we all really enjoyed WandaVision. I hadn't seen a lot of Matt Shakman's work previously, but apparently he had worked on 6 Feet Under, House, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Game of Thrones, and Succession. So very prolific television director. And I'm excited to see what he can do with the Star Trek movies. enjoyed the first two movies. I never actually saw the third one in the trilogy of the most recent ones, but I had a good time with these movies, and I'll definitely check out the Star Trek from Matt Shakman. How are you guys feeling about this one?
We don't have a ton of information, like you said, so it's tough for me to say one way or the other if I'm excited or not. I enjoyed both of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek films. I know hardcore Star Trek fans didn't all love those movies because it was such a departure from what Star Trek is and is supposed to be. It was more action oriented than philosophy oriented. But we'll see what Matt Shakman does. I mean, WandaVision has been nominated for 23 Emmys, which is insane.
Yeah.
So the man does good work and hires good people. He surrounds himself with strong content creators. So I think that can only be a positive for this new Star Trek movie. I can't remember. Christian, did you and I see the third Star Trek film together?
I think we did. We definitely saw one of them, or if not multiple ones. Because I know we were psyched
all
about
I remember
J.J. Abrams stuff.
Yeah. Even though the third one was directed by Justin Lin, someone who directed, Fast and the Furious, which we covered recently. I remember falling asleep in the middle of the third Star Trek movie in the theater. I fell asleep in the theater, which
not high praise.
I don't know. I don't know if that speaks to the film itself or how exhausted I was at the time that we saw it. But yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about that third one. So if they're going to reboot this new one, or if they're going to go in a different direction, I'm excited to see what they end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, other things that Matt Shakman has directed, episodes of Game of Thrones, Billions, The Boys, I mean, The Good Wife. So lots of critically acclaimed television. So obviously has a lot of experience under his belt, and all that stuff looks good as far as working on a lot of projects with good cinematography. So I'm hoping that, like you said, Chris, it's less, it's not as action focused, and it's more about like traditional like Star Trek stuff about like discovery and big philosophical questions. But we'll see. I mean, a long form television is known to be able to explore those things. So hopefully that's something that Matt Shakman can bring to the project. So I guarantee it's not going to be bad. The third Star Trek film, I couldn't tell you anything about it. Having seen it once in theaters, definitely was my least favorite. I think I liked the Khan movie and the rebooted one that came out before that more. But it was watchable. Like, I think it was like better than a Transformers movie, which is something. But obviously there's a high bar for Star Trek, and a lot of love for that franchise and the people that have been making it. And I know JJ has a lot of love. He's just also like, it's his love of Star Trek and his love of lens flare.
Constantly conflicting Venn diagram there.
Indeed.
So yeah, that's Matt Shakman being tapped to direct the latest Star Trek movie upcoming. The next piece of news, Netflix is further expanding into video games and podcasts. So last week, they just hired Najeri Eaton, who was formerly working at Apple and an NPR executive in her previous professions, as the company's head of podcasts. And they've also hired Mike Verdu, a former Facebook and Electronic Arts executive, as the new VP of game development. So Netflix is branching out into different media categories. And honestly, this feels like a natural progression for Netflix as they're getting bigger, as they are becoming more established. Maybe they can take chances, and they have recently, in as much as it goes, been the people making these mid-budget movies, doing a lot of more experimental stuff than a lot of the other streamers and big studios. So I'd be interested to see what type of game development and podcast development they bring. They're obviously bringing in very talented people to start heading these endeavors. So with the right people at the helm, I'm really interested to see what Netflix is going to do. No projects or anything explicitly announced yet. This is in the very early stages. But yeah, how are you guys feeling about Netflix branching out into new markets?
Christian, I'm going to give this one to you to start off, since you're usually our video game guy. I have some questions, but I want to hear your opinions first.
I think it's about a Netflix strategy overall to diversify the stack of media. I think if you look at what the biggest media companies have done with, like, Warner Brothers has a game division, Disney. Although I think they closed their official interactive division, they still license out and then, really specifically control they make really smart partnerships with studios like EA to publish a lot of like the Star Wars stuff. And if you look at the podcast landscape, it fits hand in hand. I mean, there's so many podcasts that are dedicated to just like recap shows. There was a partnership with The Last of Us. They did a podcast like behind the scenes making of with DLC host Christian Spicer. So I think there is a lot of value in owning a media stack and being able to, it's a great place to launch IP and then to support IP going further. See, Netflix is at the point right now where they've hit the apex of, they're no longer relying, they're self-reliant. They're not relying on other people's content that they're licensing. They were able to get themselves in a spot where they were producing their own content. And I'd imagine it's the same. They're looking at down the barrel of their biggest competitors, HBO and Disney. And the biggest thing they don't have is IP. So what are you going to do? You're going to create, you got to create your own IP and then build upon it and have multiple media angles to support that IP. So it just seems a bigger strategy for Netflix IP game and for becoming, a media technology company. As they've reshaped, I mean, they've completely reshaped the landscape of modern TV and even film.
Stranger Things platformer.
I was literally going to say, guaranteed the first game is a Stranger Things game.
It would make sense.
If it turns out that they are utilizing their own IP to make content and they're not like licensing pre-existing games and just like, because I know there's Google Stadia, which uses, pre-existing games and then just streams it, right, Christian? Like you pay for the subscription service and you buy the controller and like you just stream it to a device from their servers.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, as far as like whether Netflix is actually going to build a backbone for cloud-based gaming, I would imagine if there's any company that can do it, it's a company like Netflix because they have such a robust back end for video streaming. But that is still a different beast than video game streaming. I don't have enough time on this podcast to go into what Google Stadia's strategy is because it's bewildering and doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But no, Stadia is more... Stadia, I mean, if Netflix hasn't announced that they're doing any cloud-based gaming, I imagine they're just looking for licensing and stuff. I don't know if they're going to have like a portal, but Google Stadia is similar to GeForce Now from NVIDIA, and it's similar to xCloud. The idea is that you're running off of a computer somewhere in a server farm, and you basically just have a web browser window to play it.
Right.
So none of this news links to that they're getting in that game. It may just be that they're going to publish their content for other platforms, not necessarily create their own cloud-based platform, but definitely within the realm of possibility. They have the back-end cloud-based chops to pull it off, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're in the very early stages, and I'm interested to see where this goes and what strategy they end up utilizing, because it's crazy to me. Crazy times.
Yeah, so there's a lot of potential there, but Netflix is branching into video games and podcasting in the future, so I'm sure we'll be talking about their latest endeavors as they come out. The last piece of news proper, the highly anticipated, not what people expected.
The not Switch Pro, Brian?
The not Switch Pro, but the brilliantly named Nintendo Switch OLED model, which just rolls
super creative,
right off the tongue.
Yeah.
So the new Switch is out, and it's available for pre-order now. And apparently, the main difference in this model is swapping out the 6.2-inch LCD for a 7-inch OLED panel. So very slightly bigger screen that is higher quality, but none of the other technical specs have improved. It's pretty much the exact same aside from this. I'm not the video game guy at all here. Chris, I know the Switch is one of your main gaming consoles. How do you feel about this news? Are you let down by this?
Mixed emotions, Brian. More so than just the new 7-inch OLED screen, we're also getting a wider kickstand on the back, which a lot of people have been wanting for a long time.
Thank God. That was my big... I said, you know what? The only thing holding me back from getting this console, bad kickstand.
I know, right? Christian, I think you're going to be very surprised by what I actually think about this console release. So you're getting the wider kickstand. You're getting... enhanced audio, whatever that means. They haven't really gone into detail as far as like what enhanced audio means, but I guess we can assume it will be better than what we have in the Switch now.
It's enhanced, Chris.
It's enhanced. Enhanced has to be better, right? And then, of course, in the dock, they are ditching one of the USB ports to add an Ethernet port, which people who play online have been wanting. Currently you have to buy a dongle to plug into the USB port to hardwire into the Switch dock, which is a little inconvenient. So it is nice that they are just adding it into the design altogether. I do like the new design of the dock. I like the white Joy-Cons. Overall, it looks really nice, but it doesn't have an upgraded processor. We are hoping that the internals would be upgraded so it could at least be capable of handling 4K when docked, and that's not the case. This is a better Switch model than what we currently have. So I think those that don't currently own a Switch, this is an excellent entry point. It's $350, which is only $50 more than what the current retail price of the Switch is. For those that usually play docked, there's literally no reason to buy this. There's no advantage to buying this machine if you are a docked Switch player. I myself primarily play handheld, so I would be able to take advantage of the OLED screen. But to me, yes, I have the first gen Switch, and yes, there's been an upgraded model that my wife has that has a somewhat better processor, a little bit better battery life, so I'm not able to take advantage of that stuff. So it'd be a slight upgrade, but not enough to get me to go definitely. As a fan of the Switch, as of this recording, pre-orders did go up today. I did attempt, because I'm a Nintendo loyalist. I was not successful. I actually did have the opportunity to buy it for pickup at a Best Buy, and I was like, I don't really want to do that, so I ended up backing out of the cart and letting it go to somebody else. So yeah, I think there are pros and cons to this machine. It is a bit of a disappointment because the Switch Pro was rumored for such a long time, and we were getting rumors about a better processor that would support 4K. It just didn't happen. Nintendo has stated that this is going to be their longest console life. They plan on it being like a 10-year cycle for them, which is longer than most video game consoles. So, I can see them releasing the Pro in a year, probably. But as of right now, kind of disappointing. Great for people that don't already own a Switch, or great for people that primarily play handheld and want to upgrade a little bit and don't own that second version of the Switch with the better battery life and processor. But yeah, I sent you guys this link the day that it was announced, and I was really excited. And Christian, who is constantly the Switch hater, gave his usual thing. But like later in the day, after a little more investigation, the excitement kind of died down, and I was like, well, I don't really want to spend $350 for what this is giving me. But Christian, what are your opinions of this machine in the video game landscape?
As if you needed more reasons to trash the Switch.
Exactly. Nintendo's really not helping me in my case in any way, shape, or form.
No, I think it shows that Nintendo doesn't care. And that's just where they're at.
They just kickstand.
They're gonna do whatever they want.
They don't care, and they don't care about me, and that's okay. I'm okay with things not just being about me. Do I want to play a game that came out 4 years ago that they released and have it run at a steady 30 frames per second? Yeah, but they don't care, and they're gonna sell this thing, and they're gonna sell Switches, and they're gonna sell Switch Lites to little kids. And they're gonna be happy as sin, and they're probably gonna be sold out of this thing for a year and a half. And
it's already unavailable.
It's gonna sell
really well.
just
sold out everywhere.
So who cares? It's this. Nintendo's probably making the right financial decision. They clearly don't see the market that they would be serving when it comes to me, and that's okay. I'm not mad because I've already played probably what is gonna be the best game, and when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, Chris, I'm just gonna like borrow your Switch or something. I'll figure it out. I'll buy one and then sell it again
buy one and sell it again
for the same price. Like I literally bought mine only lost like $60 because I sold it for the cost of it with Zelda, and it was not a bad deal, right? For $60, I played Zelda, a couple other games, I was out. So Nintendo do what Nintendo do. I'm not surprised. It was like the most Nintendo thing that could have happened. They're like, here's the new Switch. It's got a slightly better screen. We're sold out of them. You can't get one.
You can buy them on eBay for $700 though, double the price if you want.
Oh, not bad.
It's sad.
It's a great deal. For a 7-inch OLED screen?
It's so funny because I'm in a group chat with some friends, and they posted it's like a little Steam machine. Looks like a Switch, but it's a Steam machine, basically like a mobile PC, and it runs, Overwatch at 60 frames per second, which is a good bar. That is much more powerful than Switch. It's a little more expensive. Got a really nice screen. But I wouldn't buy that either, because here's the thing. Nintendo's really good at making games for that system. That's what they do. They're a software company with really chintzy, cheap hardware that they sell. And it's just a shame that I can't pay $600 for the Steam machine, but I just want to play all these fun Nintendo games because that's what you'd want to play mobilely. I don't want to play Civ 6 on a freaking screen this big without a mouse. It makes no sense. So it just sucks because it is an underserved market, and unfortunately Sony's out of the game. And it sucks because I never bought a Vita, right? And that was the Vita was just as fast as the Switch, which is hilarious because the Vita came out in 2013 or something, 2011, and it was
even earlier, yeah.
And it was it's hyperbole. The Switch is a little more powerful, but not by much. It's very. So yeah, I'm gonna keep playing games on my phone. If I need a mobile thing.
And I'm going to keep waiting for that unicorn of a console, the Switch
mythical,
Pro.
Yeah, the mythical Switch
The
Pro.
mythical Switch Pro. It's unfortunate because I can't argue with Christian anymore. Nintendo and Christian have beaten me down to the point where the facts support his argument. You win, Christian.
But it's not.
When the unicorn does appear, though, I believe your hope will return.
Yeah, in 2 years, Brian.
Yeah. And that's what I want to reiterate, and this is why I'm not particularly butthurt. It's not making me upset. It's because Nintendo is trying not to fight the same game as Xbox and PS and PlayStation. Right. And that's from a business standpoint. They own their market, and then they have some of my market because it's the only game in town for really great software. So I honestly can't blame them for spending. I mean, when you make a more expensive machine, it's not like the margins don't change. Xboxes and PlayStation still sell pretty much at a loss because they dominate that software market. That software and Nintendo's no different. That Switch to make for a Japanese company to sell a game machine for $300, they're not making very much on that. And so for them to invest in just buying more expensive parts, only to not be able to sell out even worse, to have more delays, for them to make no more money when they don't need to. There's honestly a great argument against it, unfortunately, for gamers like me. So
yeah.
So do what you want, Nintendo fans. Buy it,
those of
don't
you who are
buy
able
it.
to get it, have fun.
What are you gonna play Smash on your PlayStation? Fuck out of here!
Oh boy, that won't happen ever.
You buy my chintzy little speak and spell. You play that shit on there. I'm big Nintendo.
Calling the Switch a speak and spell now. What the fuck?
And a speak and spell with enhanced audio.
It has enhanced audio.
Audio,
And
yes.
an OLED cow. Oh no, my camera.
Half an inch bigger. So yeah, that's the Nintendo Switch OLED, which unfortunately is probably unavailable if this is the first time you're hearing of it. But you can buy them from rude scalpers online if you have the money for that. Sounds like it's not worthwhile at this point, though. Hell of a
Please don't
kickstand.
buy from scalpers. Don't buy from scalpers. The kickstand is not worth $700.
But I mean, Chris, that lean, so nice. So yeah, moving on to some stuff that's coming out this week. We've got a bunch, so I'm going to fly through it. Coming this Thursday, HBO Max and Sesame Workshop has teamed up for a new series that is called Through Our Eyes, and this analyzes four different elements from parental incarceration, climate displacement, the wounds of war, and homelessness. Each episode deals with one of those, and it's through the eyes of children, interviews with children who are speaking to these issues from personal experience and getting their perspective. So the first episode is directed by Gita Gandbir and Rudy Valdez. The second one is directed by Talia Bridges McMahon. The third by Christy Jacobson. And the fourth by Smriti Mudra. And this show looks ridiculously emotionally powerful and obviously very prescient to the times that we're in right now. Obviously, we're not the first to say this, but there are a lot of huge issues right now that are overwhelming and that our children and our children's children will have to deal with, whether we want to accept them right now or not. And a company like Sesame a company like Sesame, obviously involved with the Sesame Street show, is the perfect way to reach across all audiences and kind of appeal to our humanity. So this looks like something that's really relevant and needed right now. And if we can't listen to the children, then we've probably lost our way in some regard. So yeah, that is Through Our Eyes. That's coming to HBO Max this Thursday. Next is Ted Lasso season 2. This Friday is the first episode is coming to Apple TV Plus. So we are all huge fans of this show. It's developed by Bill Lawrence, Jason Sudeikis, Joe Kelly, and Brendan Hunt, and also stars Jason Sudeikis. It is about a goofy American low-level football coach who ends up coaching a professional soccer team in England and the shenanigans that ensue. This show has no reason to be as ridiculously emotionally impactful and hilarious as it is, but it 100% works. It started off from a spoof advertisement that Jason Sudeikis was involved in and turned into this really heartwarming show, one of all 3 of our favorites from last year.
Yeah.
I'm ridiculously excited for season 2 of Ted Lasso. So that's coming to Apple TV Plus this Friday. Next, Masters of the Universe Revelation is coming out on Netflix this Friday. I know Chris is excited for this one. So this is the new He-Man show. The description is: the war for Eternia begins again in what may be the final battle between He-Man and Skeletor. So this was developed by Kevin Smith and is a sequel to the show that ran from 1983 to 1985, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which I never watched, but I know was tied to a lot of people's childhood, whether it be toys or the show itself or both. And yeah, the first 5 episodes of this, it's coming out in 2 parts, 10-part series total. The first 5 episodes will be on Netflix this Friday. It stars Chris Wood as He-Man, Mark Hamill as Skeletor, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Teela, Liam Cunningham as Man-at-Arms, and many more. Stellar cast. And I never watched the original He-Man show, but because Kevin Smith is tied to this, pretty big fan of his, I've been hearing him talk about this show on his podcast for what feels like a year now. So I'll definitely be checking out at least an episode or 2 of this. The trailer and animation looks really solid, actually. So
what's selling me? There's one thing that's selling me. It ain't Kevin Smith. You all know
Mark Hamill.
Right. It's Mark Hamill, a Skeletor.
It's great casting.
How perfect.
So good.
Dude, Kevin Smith is already, they're already friends, but Kevin Smith is also a huge fan of him as the Joker. So I guarantee you that was probably the first call he made. He was like, who's going to be my Skeletor? It has to be Mark.
There's no question.
Call him up. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be talking about this show next week in Quick Hits, 100%.
Very cool.
Awesome. So moving on to some movies that are coming out this week. This Friday, we've got the new M. Night Shyamalan picture, Old. So this is inspired by a graphic novel called Sandcastle by Pierre Oscar Levy and Frederick Peters, and stars an ensemble cast, which includes Gael Garcia Bernal, Vicky Creeps, Eliza Scanlon, Thomasin McKenzie, Alex Wolff, and many more. And the general plot of this movie is some people somehow end up on a beach and time ends up propelling forward at a faster rate than usual. I'm not sure how much the trailer gives away for this sort of movie. I would suggest not watching the trailer if you're at all interested in it, because it seems to go relatively deep into the plot, maybe. And
we've seen the trailer twice now.
Yeah, no, exactly. We've seen it a good amount recently. And it looks like it could be kind of meh, but because it's Shyamalan, like when he hits, I think he really hits. I'm a pretty big fan of a lot of his stuff. So I'm hoping for a Shyamalan comeback after he's done Glass and Split, obviously, most recently, which were pretty popular, and I was a decently big fan of. So yeah, that's Old. That'll be in theaters this Friday. The next movie is the 3rd installment in the G.I. Joe franchise, of which I've seen 0 movies.
We're already at 3?
This I know it's hard to believe.
Retaliation was the...
I had no idea.
There was a
I'm
sequel.
not sure.
I didn't see that. I saw the original one, and it was not good. Not a good film.
I do like that Wikipedia describes this as an American superhero film. So I didn't know it was described that way, but Snake Eyes, also subtitled Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins, is directed by Robert Schwenke from a screenplay by Evan Spiliotopoulos, and as well as Joe Shrapnel and Anna Waterhouse. And it stars Henry Golding as the titular character. So this movie looks like it could be solid. I mean, the action looks good. The trailer is pretty good. I obviously, not having seen the first two movies, am not super interested in it from a trilogy perspective, but I may end up seeing this movie. I think Henry Golding is very much can carry any movie. He is a great leading man in everything that I've seen him in so far. So him as an action hero, I think that's a relatively easy sell, even though maybe kind of a generic American superhero movie. So
can I tell you that this movie doesn't look bad? Which is
it doesn't.
It doesn't as a standalone, especially. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm gonna say that, but I kind of want to see this movie. I might
it looks like a fun action movie.
I might like it more than Black Widow.
Oh wow. Reaching for Christian's top 5 here. Potentially Snake Eyes. Wait for that review. Another one that's coming to theaters this Friday that has been caught up in release hell because of the pandemic is The Comeback Trail. So the summary of this movie is: indebted to the mob, 2 movie producers try to save themselves by setting up an aging actor for an insurance scam. So this is directed by George Gallo and written by Gallo and Josh Posner, and it's based on the 1982 film of the same name, actually. So it's a remake. It stars Robert De Niro, Tommy Lee Jones, Morgan Freeman, Zach Braff, Emil Hirsch, Eddie Griffin, and many more. A stellar cast. I will say the reviews for this movie are not great.
Oh, that's tragic. I thought the trailer looks like so much fun. It kind of gave me like, I mean, it can't, I don't think it can live up to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but like it did give me those Once Upon a Time in Hollywood vibes. It's like old Hollywood in the 70s. The cast is strong. Like,
it's like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but not directed by Tarantino and starring Zach Braff. What could go wrong?
That is a bit of a downgrade.
But yeah, so that's The Comeback Trail. That'll be out this Friday. The last movie that'll be on Prime Video this Friday is called Jolt. So this is directed by Tanya Wexler and follows a bouncer with an anger management problem who goes on a revenge-fueled rampage after the murder of a friend. If this sounds familiar, it's because every movie since John Wick has been kind of this basic plot. It's a formula, and it's obviously John Wick. It's not the first revenge movie.
They killed my pig.
It is not Gunpowder Milkshake.
I was going to say, didn't we talk about this movie last week? Because it sounds a lot like Gunpowder Milkshake.
It does. But I think it's more on and Pig. Pig is getting high praise, by the way. Nicolas Cage. People are surprised that he's an amazing actor for some reason.
I love me Pig.
Love me some Pig. So yeah, this is directed by Tanya Wexler from a screenplay by Scott Washa. Stars Kate Beckinsale, Bobby Cannavale, Laverne Cox, Stanley Tucci, and Jai Courtney. And it basically looks like Atomic Blonde meets that Jason Statham movie.
Crank.
Yes, I think
I thought the same exact thing when I was watching the trailer. I was like, is this a female Crank?
It's not exactly the same, but it's functionally very similar. Looks very silly, but maybe with tongue in cheek. It might be a little bit self-aware. So it's going to be on Prime Video, easily accessible. Kate Beckinsale, Jolt, coming out this Friday. And that is it for the news this week, guys.
Brian, what a great wacky news corner you brought. Really appreciate you bringing your A game today. You can keep your job. So
thank you.
That's going to do it for the YouTube portion. So if you want to hear the rest of the show, we talk about what we'll be consuming. So go ahead and subscribe to the podcast down below on your favorite podcast player. Before we go, though, where can people find more of your work on the internet, fellas?
Loyal viewers and listeners, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Conkling, talking about all things nerdy, comic books, television, movies, video games, collectibles. If it's nerdy, I'm talking about it.
To all the watchers, you can find me at True Pop-O-Holic.
And you can find my band at Midnight Satire. That's Midnight Satire. Search on your favorite music streaming platform. these gentlemen starred in a music video that'll be out in a few months, hopefully. Yes, so that's coming along, so please stay tuned. I've been talking about new stuff coming along for this entire season of Pop-O-Holics, and I promise
The hype is real.
it's a real thing.
Things are happening. Pop-O-Holics, we've seen things. They exist.
We've heard things.
They're coming.
They've been
We've
stuck
heard
in my
things.
head. They have been stuck in my head.
in due time. So we look forward to checking that out and hearing what our listeners and watchers think. I'm saying it right now. We're going to put our Loki review up on YouTube. I think we should do that. So look forward to that coming out sometime around Wednesday. Definitely will be on the podcast feed on Wednesday. So if you want to hear our thoughts on the latest Disney Plus show, hit the subscribe button and make sure you subscribe down below to get early access on our audio platforms. That's going to do it for the News Corner. And yeah, that's it.